Pull up a chair. Lock the door. Phone face down. Drink something cold. Because the TMZ footage you have been watching on a loop for 2 weeks straight, the one where Stefon Diggs walks up to that sidewalk camera and asks, "You got any more questions?" 4 times in 23 seconds, that, y'all, is not the actual Stefon Diggs clip. That is not even close to the actual clip. The actual clip is 46 seconds longer. And inside those 46 seconds, his own bodyguard, the man who has been on his personal security detail for 3 full NFL seasons, walks away from him on camera. Not glances away. Not steps aside. Not turns his back for a second. Walks away. Mid-interview. While his client is still standing there talking. This is the clip TMZ trimmed. This is the clip nobody is talking about. And tonight, baby, we are walking through it frame by frame. Let me tell you why this changes everything you thought you knew about that sidewalk ambush, because the meme version and the receipt version are not the same product. Y'all, let's get into this. Because the published 23 seconds was a viral moment. The hidden 46 seconds is a verdict. Let me set the table for you. The TMZ ambush we have all seen takes place outside a coffee shop in Lower Manhattan, on what looks like a perfectly normal weekday morning. The published clip is exactly 23 seconds long, no more, no less. It ends, very neatly, on his 4th and final, "You got any more questions?" The published clip is the one that went viral. The published clip is the one that got memed 12 different ways before lunch. The published clip became the foundation of every commentary video, every podcast segment, every X thread, every reaction reel. Including, full transparency, 2 of the most watched videos on this very channel. But that published clip is not the raw clip. The raw clip, the one that briefly surfaced on the TMZ livestream feed before it was quietly yanked and swapped out for the polished short version, is 69 seconds long. And inside the 46 seconds that got cut, the most devastating piece of body language evidence of this entire saga happens right there in front of the lens. Not implied. Not subtle. Right there in front of the lens. Hear me out. Because once you see what is actually on that uncut feed, the meltdown that followed over the next 8 days makes a completely different kind of sense. The burner account chaos. The deleted Instagram stories at 3 in the morning. The cryptic gym selfies with no caption. The friends posting then unposting. All of it. Every piece of behavior that the internet has been trying to read like tea leaves for 2 weeks has been getting read against the wrong baseline. The baseline everyone has been working from is 23 seconds of Stefon Diggs sounding annoyed on a sidewalk. The baseline everyone should have been working from is 69 seconds of Stefon Diggs realizing, in real time, on camera, that his own corporate support structure had just made a decision about him. About his behavior. About his reputational value to them at that exact moment. So tonight we are going to walk through the 46 missing seconds, one item at a time, and then we are going to talk about why those 46 seconds got cut. And listen, I want you to keep one thought in your head the whole time. The cameras saw it. The boom mic caught it. The clip got trimmed. But the 46 seconds did not stop existing just because TMZ pulled them off the public feed. They exist. They surfaced. And we are about to walk through them right now. Item 1. At the 24-second mark of the raw clip, exactly 1 second after that 4th, "You got any more questions?" Stefon Diggs turns his head slightly to his left. Not a full pivot. Just a glance. He is looking for his bodyguard. The bodyguard, who up to this point has been standing roughly 2 feet behind Diggs's right shoulder for the entire interview, and who, if you go back through the last 3 years of public photos of him, has been standing in that exact same spot in basically every public-facing appearance the man has made since signing his last contract. That bodyguard is not there. The bodyguard has stepped out of the frame. Diggs is looking, briefly, for somebody who is no longer where he is supposed to be. And then he turns his face back to the TMZ reporter and keeps talking like nothing happened. But it happened. The glance is on tape. Item 2. At the 28-second mark, the boom mic, which on these TMZ ambushes is usually mounted on a small handheld rig, picks up footsteps. Plural. Distinct. Walking footsteps. And here is the thing you have to listen for. Those footsteps are not walking toward the interview. They are walking away from the interview. You can hear the directionality clearly if you isolate the audio, which a couple of YouTube audio engineers already did on the leaked feed before the originals got pulled. The footsteps are confirmed by a second camera angle, a bystander phone video that surfaced briefly on Reddit before it got removed by a moderator citing some vague harassment rationale that nobody quite bought, and a bystander video shows the bodyguard, in the same black polo shirt and earpiece he has been photographed in at every Diggs public appearance for 3 solid years, walking calmly toward an idling black SUV parked roughly 15 feet behind the interview position. And listen. He does not stop. He does not look back. He does not signal anyone. He does not check on his client. He gets into the front passenger seat of the SUV. The SUV does not pull away. The SUV just sits there, engine running, with the bodyguard inside it. Watching. Through the windshield. Like a man on a stakeout watching a situation he is not in anymore. That is item 2. The bodyguard left the frame, walked to the vehicle, sat down, and watched from inside the SUV while Stefon Diggs continued the interview alone. Item 3. At the 38-second mark, and you can only see this on the bystander cell phone footage, because the TMZ camera is locked on the face, there is a moment where his shoulders drop. Not a dramatic drop. Not a slump. Not the kind of thing a casual viewer would catch on first watch. It is what body language analysts call a protective collapse. A micro drop in the deltoid line, accompanied by a tiny inward roll of the upper chest. It lasts maybe half a second. And it is the exact postural signature that researchers who study public figure stress responses have identified as the moment a high-status individual realizes the support structure they have been operating inside has just disengaged. Read that again. The cameras are still rolling. The TMZ reporter is still pushing for an answer. The crowd of bystanders on the sidewalk is still gawking. But the one person who was supposed to be standing right behind him, physically, structurally, professionally, contractually, has just withdrawn his presence from the frame. And Diggs's body, on a half-second delay, registered it before his face did. That is item 3. The body knew before the face knew. Item 4. At the 47-second mark, Stefon Diggs ends the interview himself. Not the bodyguard, because the bodyguard is in the SUV. Not a publicist, because there is no publicist visible on the raw feed. Not a friend. Himself. He says, and I want you to listen for this if you ever get a chance to hear the uncut audio, he says, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. 3 times. Descending intonation. Which is a textbook submissive vocal pattern, by the way, and any speech analyst will confirm that. Then he turns. He walks toward the SUV. He gets into the back seat. Not the front, where the bodyguard is sitting. The back. The SUV finally pulls away from the curb. The raw clip ends at the 69-second mark. TMZ posts the polished, trimmed, 23-second version. The 46 seconds of bodyguard withdrawal and client collapse never make it onto the published feed. End of story, as far as the public is concerned. Except, baby, that is not the end of the story. Because once you know the 46 seconds exist, the next question writes itself. Why was it cut? Now. This is where the story stops being about a viral sidewalk moment and starts being architectural. And by architectural I mean structural, contractual, corporate. Hear me out, because I am about to walk you through something that the average TMZ viewer does not know and that the security industry would prefer to keep that way. Item 5. Personal security details for high-net-worth NFL clients, and I am talking about the tier of players who have 9-figure career earnings, brand portfolios, endorsement obligations, the whole package, which is exactly the bracket he sits in, are governed by contracts. Not handshake deals. Actual contracts. And those contracts include behavioral clauses. One of the most common behavioral clauses in the high-end personal protection industry, and this is publicly documented from leaked athlete contracts that became evidence in prior unrelated civil litigation, so I am not making this up, is what is called, in industry shorthand, a reputational withdrawal clause. Let me translate that for you in plain English. The reputational withdrawal clause allows the security firm, not the individual bodyguard, the firm itself, the corporation that employs the bodyguard, to instruct its on-site personnel to physically disengage from a client during a public moment if the firm's real-time risk assessment determines that the client's behavior in that specific moment poses an unacceptable reputational liability to the firm. Translation of the translation: if you are an NFL player with a personal security contract, and you start acting in a way on a public camera that the firm believes could damage their other client relationships, the firm is contractually permitted to instruct your bodyguard to step out of the frame. To literally walk away. Until you stop. I want you to sit with that for a full 10 seconds. Because the second you understand what a reputational withdrawal clause is, every weird thing you saw in that TMZ clip locks into place. Item 6. The bodyguard's withdrawal during this TMZ ambush is, as far as anybody who works in the personal protection industry can publicly remember, the single clearest documented example of a reputational withdrawal clause being invoked in real time, on a public camera, in front of a recording boom mic, in the entire recent history of celebrity security. The bodyguard did not abandon his client. The bodyguard did not get spooked. The bodyguard did not need to take a phone call. The bodyguard did not need water. The bodyguard invoked the clause. Which means the security firm, the actual corporate entity that signs the bodyguard's paychecks, looked at the live situation, in real time, on a live feed they were monitoring, and determined that Diggs asking a TMZ camera, "You got any more questions?" 4 times in 23 seconds was so reputationally damaging that the firm could not afford to be visually associated with it on camera for one more second. Read that sentence again. I will wait. The bodyguard did not get bored. The bodyguard did not lose interest. The bodyguard's employer made a real-time business calculation that continued physical association with Stefon Diggs, during this specific interview, in this specific posture, with this specific tone, posed an unacceptable risk to the firm's broader portfolio of clients. And the bodyguard executed the order. Calmly. Professionally. On camera. Toward the SUV. Sat down. Watched through the windshield. Did not return until his client got into the back seat and the interview was over. That is not a man losing his cool on a TMZ sidewalk. That is a man whose own corporate support structure made a real-time calculation that he had just become a liability. To his own security firm. The people whose entire job is to physically stand behind him. And this, finally, is why those 46 seconds got cut. Because if the general public sees a high-profile NFL player's own security detail physically withdraw from him on camera during an interview, every other client of that security firm, and listen, these firms have rosters that include musicians, actors, tech executives, foreign dignitaries, royals, the whole spread, every one of those clients immediately starts asking their representative the same question. What triggers the clause? What behavior, exactly, gets me left on a sidewalk? Could it happen to me? And once that question gets asked at scale, every brand sponsor in the country starts asking the parallel question. Is this happening to our talent? Are our paid spokespeople being silently flagged? The entire ecosystem of athlete protection contracts, brand ambassador relationships, and crisis management retainers becomes a national conversation overnight. TMZ does not want that conversation, because TMZ is in the access business and access requires firms to keep representing the kind of clients TMZ ambushes. The security firm does not want that conversation, because the entire premise of the industry is that the firm and the client are a unified front, never separated, never publicly fractured. The NFL does not want that conversation, because the NFL already has enough headlines about player conduct without adding, even his own bodyguard walked away, to the genre. So the clip got trimmed. The 23 seconds went viral as a meme. The 46 seconds quietly disappeared off the public feed, and the people who saw them on the brief live stream window were left to argue about whether they had really seen what they thought they had seen. But here is the thing. The bystander footage exists. The Reddit thread that briefly hosted it exists in cached form on the archive sites that you and I both know. The audio engineers who downloaded the leaked feed before it got pulled have the files. The body language is unambiguous. The bodyguard walked. The client noticed. The client collapsed. The interview ended on the client's own terms because the structural support had already exited the frame. And the next 8 days of burner account meltdown, the chaos that the entire internet has been trying to interpret without a baseline, makes complete and total sense once you accept the central fact. Stefon Diggs' own security firm had already decided he was on his own. The internet just took 8 days to catch up to what the bodyguard knew at the 24-second mark of the raw clip. Now let me pause for a second, because I see the comments already starting and I want to address it. I see some of you typing right now, but Tisa, how do you know it was a clause invocation and not just a bodyguard taking a break? Hear me out. Hear me out. Number 1. A senior detail principal, and this man is a principal, not a junior. You can confirm that from the 3 years of photographs where he is the one inside the close circle and not the outer ring. A senior detail principal does not take an unscheduled break during a live media interaction. That is a basic training failure that would get him fired from any major firm in the country, and this firm is a major firm. Number 2. He did not signal a replacement. There is no other detail member visible on the raw feed who steps in to cover the gap when he withdraws. That means the entire close protection layer was instructed to vacate the frame, not just one person. A bodyguard taking a personal break does not pull the whole layer with him. A clause invocation does. Number 3. The SUV did not leave with him. He got into the front passenger seat and the SUV stayed parked. That is not retreat. That is a positioning move. The vehicle stayed available because the client was going to need to leave, but the close protection layer was withdrawn from the camera frame because the firm did not want to be visually associated with Diggs's behavior on that recording. 3 different signals. All 3 confirmed the same read. This was a clause execution. And listen, while I am on this, let me say one more thing about the man at the center of all this that I have been holding back on, because the discourse around this man has been going one of 2 directions and both directions are wrong. Direction 1 is the people who want to crucify him for an interview tone. Direction 2 is the people who want to dismiss the whole thing as a fan with a camera. The truth, as it usually does, sits in the middle. Stefon Diggs is a generational athlete. He is a Pro Bowl wide receiver. He has been one of the most consistent route runners of his generation. None of that is in dispute. What is in dispute, and what the bodyguard walkaway is the receipt for, is whether the people around Stefon Diggs, the people he pays to manage his exposure, his image, his physical safety, are still operating on the assumption that he is in control of his public moments. And the answer the bodyguard delivered, by walking to the SUV, is no. The people around him are no longer operating on that assumption. The firm has updated its internal risk file on Stefon Diggs. The bodyguard's walk was the visible, on-camera signature of that internal update. Now, let me read you something. Pause this whole video. Because the part that came next is the part that the bystander phone footage almost missed and that the Reddit thread almost killed. There is a moment, about 2 seconds after Diggs gets into the back of the SUV and the door closes, where the front passenger window, where the bodyguard is sitting, rolls down maybe 2 inches. Not all the way. Not a conversation. 2 inches. And the bodyguard says something to the driver. You cannot hear what? The bystander is too far away and the angle is wrong. But the body language read on the front seat exchange is the read that any security professional would make. The bodyguard is debriefing the driver. He is reporting what just happened. He is communicating, in the standard close protection feedback loop, that the situation has been logged and the firm needs to be notified. That 2-inch window crack and the brief verbal exchange that followed is, in the language of the industry, an event tag. Which means by the time that SUV pulled away from the coffee shop, the firm's operations center already had a flag on Diggs's account. You know what that flag becomes within 72 hours. An internal review. You know what an internal review becomes within 7 days. A client meeting. You know what a client meeting becomes within 14 days, if the review goes the wrong way. A staffing change. And here, baby, is where we get to the prophecy. The prophecy. Listen carefully, because in 2 weeks you are going to look back at this part of the video and either send it to your friends or argue with me in the comments. Within the next 14 days, the security firm in question is going to quietly transition Stefon Diggs to a different account manager. Not the same senior detail principal who walked away from him on the TMZ feed. Not someone of equivalent seniority. A junior. Or in some scenarios, a mid-tier. Which in security industry shorthand is the soft, polite, contractually compliant version of the message: we are not putting our senior people on this anymore. We will keep the account because the money is good and the optics of losing him entirely would generate more bad press than we want. But we are not putting our first chair on the second violin part. We are reassigning down. So here is the homework. Watch every public appearance Stefon Diggs makes for the next 2 weeks. Watch the photographs. Watch the paparazzi shots. Watch the social media tags. Watch which face is standing 2 feet behind his right shoulder. If the face has changed, if the senior principal you have seen in 3 years of photos has been swapped out for somebody newer, younger, smaller in the close protection layer, the prophecy is confirmed. And if the face has changed, you will know that on the day Stefon Diggs walked up to a TMZ camera and asked, "You got any more questions?" 4 times, somewhere in a glass-walled office, somebody opened his file and wrote one word at the top. Liability. Okay. Hear me out, because I see the comments asking about Cardi B and I am not going to ignore that. Here is the honest read. Cardi B is a separate situation. Cardi B has her own arc and her own protective layer and her own public history with him, and whatever is or is not happening between Cardi B and Stefon Diggs at this exact moment is not, in my opinion, the engine of the Bodyguard's decision. The engine of the Bodyguard's decision is what Stefon Diggs himself was doing in front of a TMZ camera, on a public sidewalk, with a public boom mic, with a publicly recorded audio feed. The firm did not make a decision about Cardi B. The firm made a decision about him. So let us not put that on Cardi B's plate. Cardi B has her own week. Stefon Diggs has his. Now. Let me also say this, because I see the other comment thread starting. Some of you are going to push back and say, well, maybe the Bodyguard had a personal reason. Maybe he saw a threat. Maybe he had a family emergency. Maybe he had to use the bathroom. Listen. Listen to me. A close protection principal does not leave his post for a bathroom break in the middle of a live, recorded media interaction with an unknown number of bystanders in the immediate radius. That is a violation of the most basic training a personal protection professional receives in week 1 of his career. If he had a genuine emergency, he would have signaled a replacement, and the replacement would be on the raw feed. There is no replacement on the raw feed. There is just Stefon Diggs, the TMZ reporter, the boom mic, and an empty patch of sidewalk where a man in a black polo shirt used to be standing. And by the way, if you have been paying attention to the broader pattern of Diggs's last 6 months, the burner accounts that the internet sleuth Twitter has been documenting, the rotating social media presence, the cryptic posts and the deleted posts and the friends who were posting then were not posting then were back to posting, the Bodyguard walkaway is not the start of the story. The Bodyguard walkaway is the punctuation mark on a paragraph the firm had been writing internally for weeks. By the time the senior principal walked toward the SUV, the firm was not reacting to a single moment. The firm was reacting to a pattern that had finally produced one on-camera moment they could not absorb. And the moment they could not absorb was the 4, "You got any more questions?" in 23 seconds. Now let me show you something else. Because this is the part the YouTube reaction channels have completely missed. 3 days before the TMZ sidewalk ambush, Stefon Diggs was photographed at a Madison Square Garden event. Sitting courtside. And in those courtside photos, which were picked up by every sports gossip outlet on the planet within an hour, the seat directly to his left was empty. Not empty as in nobody was there. Empty as in somebody had been there, gotten up, and not come back. You can tell because the program was still on the seat. The drink was on the floor next to it. The phone charger was still plugged into the outlet under the chair. I want you to put those 2 images side by side. The Madison Square Garden seat, empty next to him, with the abandoned belongings of the person who had been sitting there. And the TMZ sidewalk frame, with the empty patch of concrete where a Bodyguard used to be. These are not the same event. These are not even the same week. But they are the same story. They are the same pattern. The seat at Madison Square Garden was a public verdict, delivered without a microphone. The Bodyguard at the coffee shop was a private verdict, delivered without a press release. And the private verdict came first. Read that one more time. Because that is the whole architecture. The private verdict came first. The corporate withdrawal preceded the social withdrawal. The firm pulled back before the public did. Which means whatever the public is just now starting to figure out about him, the people closest to him, the people who have signed contracts to physically stand behind him, figured it out earlier. They figured it out and they acted on it. And the bystander cell phone footage is the proof. Listen. I want to be very careful here. Because I want everybody in this comment section to understand what I am saying and what I am not saying. I am not saying Stefon Diggs is finished. I am not saying his career is over. I am not saying he will never be on a roster again. I am not even saying that the Bodyguard withdrawal predicts long-term consequences in his contract life. What I am saying is that on a single, specific sidewalk, in front of a single, specific TMZ camera, with a single, specific boom mic running, the corporate structure that is paid to physically stand behind Stefon Diggs made a real-time decision to step out of the frame. And TMZ cut the footage. And that decision matters because of what it tells us about the people whose job is to know. Let me come back, though, to something I said at the top. Because I want to close one of the loops I opened. I said at the top that the bystander cell phone footage briefly surfaced on Reddit and then was removed. The removal happened within roughly 4 hours of upload. The moderator who removed it cited a harassment rule that, when you actually read the rule, does not cleanly apply to a video of a person walking to a car. Which means a removal request was likely submitted by an interested party. Now I am not going to speculate on which interested party. I have my opinions and you have yours and we will talk about it in the comments. But the speed of the removal tells you that somebody, somewhere, was watching that Reddit thread in real time and wanted that bystander footage off the platform before it got mirrored across the rest of the internet. The mirror happened anyway, by the way. Because that is how the internet works. The footage exists. The cache exists. The audio file exists. The frame-by-frame breakdowns exist on at least 3 different commentary channels that I am not going to name on this video because I want them to keep doing what they are doing without getting their feeds messed with. But if you go looking, you will find it. And once you find it, you will see exactly what I have been describing for the last 40 minutes. Now, let me get to the part 1 no you have been waiting for. Because this whole video has been building to one question, and I want to answer it before we close. What did he do, in those 23 seconds, that triggered the clause? This is the part where I have to be careful, and I am going to be careful. Because I do not have the firm's internal risk matrix in front of me, and neither do you. But I can tell you what the publicly documented triggers tend to be in this category of clause. They tend to be one of 3 things. Number 1. Verbal aggression toward media in a way that suggests the client is losing emotional control, because emotional control is the foundation of every other risk assessment the firm performs. Number 2. A pattern of repetitive language that suggests cognitive narrowing under stress, and listen, for, you got any more questions, in 23 seconds is a textbook example of repetitive cognitive narrowing, which is a stress response, not a defiance response. And number 3. A facial microexpression that the firm's behavioral analysts, watching the live feed from the operations center, flag as escalation likely. Pick any one of those 3. Pick any combination. The fact is that the firm saw something on its live monitor that crossed a threshold the firm had pre-negotiated with itself. And the bodyguard executed. And listen. I want to say one more thing about him as a human being, because this video is about a body language event and a contractual mechanism, but at the end of the day Stefon Diggs is a person. And I think the larger story here is not that he had a bad 23 seconds. The larger story is that the people who have been paid for 3 years to stand behind him made a calculation that those 23 seconds had to be answered with a withdrawal. That tells us something about his trajectory that the public discourse has not caught up to. The discourse has been focused on the meme. The bodyguard was focused on the file. And the file got an update. Stefon Diggs himself has not commented on the missing 46 seconds. His official representatives have not commented on the missing 46 seconds. TMZ has not commented on why the published clip is 23 seconds and the original live stream feed was 69 seconds. The security firm has not commented on the bodyguard's withdrawal, and they will not, because the entire industry runs on the principle that you do not discuss client operations in public, ever, for any reason. So the silence around the 46 seconds is going to keep being silence. Which means the work of figuring out what happened on that sidewalk has been left to the public. And the public, including this channel, is going to do that work. Here is the thing though. I want to be really honest with you about one piece of this, because I respect this audience too much to play it any other way. The reputational withdrawal clause framework I described, the public documentation, the leaked athlete contracts, the prior civil litigation, that framework is real, and it is documented, and it is part of the public record in the personal protection industry. But the specific firm Stefon Diggs uses has never had its specific contract leaked, which means I cannot tell you that the clause in his specific contract is worded exactly the way I described it. What I can tell you is that the behavior on the raw clip matches the behavior the clause is designed to produce, and the speed of the bodyguard's exit matches the operational tempo the clause requires. So either his specific contract has a clause that looks like the standard one, or his specific contract has a different mechanism that produces an identical visible outcome. Either way, the outcome is what you saw on the bystander footage. The walk happened. The withdrawal happened. The SUV stayed parked. The interview ended. The clip got cut. I want you to drop a comment right now and tell me what you think triggered the clause. Was it the tone? Was it the repetition? Was it a facial micro-expression we cannot see clearly? Was it something the firm had been tracking for weeks that finally tipped on the sidewalk? Tell me in the comments because I read every single one of them, and I am going to make a follow-up video in 14 days, on the day the prophecy resolves, and I want to read the best comment guesses on camera. So put it down there. Use your real account. Tell your friends to put theirs. The smartest comment, in my fully biased opinion, gets a shout out in the follow-up. Save this video. Because in 14 days, when somebody posts a fresh paparazzi shot of Stefon Diggs leaving a hotel, leaving a gym, leaving a restaurant, and the face 2 feet behind his right shoulder is a face you have not seen in the 3 years of photographs leading up to this moment, you are going to want to come right back here and watch this section again. The senior principal walked. The firm updated the file. The reassignment is coming. 2 weeks. Mark the calendar. Mark the comment. Mark the date. Subscribe to this channel because in 14 days we are right back here, breaking down the new face in the close protection layer, and the day after that we are breaking down the second-order effects on his brand deals, his endorsement schedule, and the way the league office is going to read the optics. There is so much more to walk through, and we are walking through every inch of it together, the same way we walked through the 46 seconds tonight. But before I go, I want to come back, one more time, to the central thing. Because I do not want anybody to leave this video thinking the central thing was the meme. The central thing was not the meme. The central thing was the moment a high-profile NFL player stood on a public sidewalk and watched his own corporate support structure exit the frame. That moment is the verdict. Not the public verdict. The private verdict. The one delivered without a microphone, without a press release, without a leak, without a statement, without an interview. Just a man in a black polo shirt walking calmly toward an SUV while his client kept talking to a camera that was still rolling. The cameras saw it. The boom mic caught it. The Reddit thread briefly hosted it. The cache preserved it. The cell phone bystander caught the angle TMZ missed. The audio engineers pulled the footsteps off the boom track. The frame-by-frame people did the rest of the math. And tonight we walked through it together, item 1 to item 6, second by second, frame by frame, footstep by footstep, until the architecture was visible. So here is where we land. The seat at Madison Square Garden was a public verdict. The bodyguard at the coffee shop was a private verdict. The private verdict came first. The published clip was 23 seconds. The actual clip was 69 seconds. The 46 seconds in between is where the entire story of the next phase of his public life will be written. And we are going to be here for every word of it. Drop your guess on what triggered the clause. Save this video so the algorithm knows you came back. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already, because the 14-day follow-up is coming whether the prophecy lands or not, and I want you in the room when we walk through it. Tell a friend. Share this with the one person you know who has been arguing about the 23 seconds for 2 weeks. Send it to them. Let them see the 46 seconds. Let them update their priors. Let them come back and argue with you in the comments. That is how this works. That is how we get to the truth together. The bodyguard walked. The client noticed. The body collapsed in a micro-shoulder drop. The SUV stayed parked. The interview ended on the client's own terms. The verdict was delivered. And nobody filed a press release because the firm does not file press releases. The firm just walks away from the frame and lets the cameras do the work. The clip got cut. The 46 seconds disappeared. But the 46 seconds are the most important 46 seconds of this entire Stefon Diggs saga. Because everything that has happened since, the burner accounts, the deleted posts, the cryptic gym selfies, the friends posting then unposting, the rumor cycle, the meme cycle, the silence from the official channels, every piece of it makes sense in exactly one light. The light of a corporate calculation made in real time on a sidewalk in Lower Manhattan, executed by a man in a black polo shirt, and witnessed by a boom mic and a bystander with a phone. That is the story. That is the whole story. And in 14 days, when the new face shows up behind the right shoulder, the story will be confirmed. Talk to y'all in the comments. Watch the photographs. Mark the calendar. Stay sharp out there. The bodyguard walked. The client collapsed. The verdict was delivered. And we will be right back here when the prophecy resolves. Bye, y'all.